my daughter, you no see me?
Mama Amara, good morning. Oh, how body?
Come here, sit. Why are you looking like someone who swallowed bitter leaf? Come, sit down here with me. I saw your mother yesterday at the palm oil cellar. Chioma, I've never seen her so troubled. Someone asked about your wedding date and she nearly fainted. Complicated? Listen here. In Uri village, when a man loves a woman and she loves him, two things happen. The families meet, they agree, they marry. This business of complicated, where is it coming from?
Chioma.
Odogwu.
I have seen 3 generations marry in this village. I have watched it grow and I have watched it die. When two people from different families come together, when they don't know each other's history, when they come from separate worlds, sometimes the gods themselves don't know whether to bless it or curse it.
Mama, what if his family doesn't agree? What if they say no?
Then, my daughter, love becomes a tragedy. A beautiful thing that couldn't survive the weight of everything that came before it. Go and pray to your ancestors, child. Pray that love is stronger than memory. Pray that love is stronger than pride.
When Chioma and Odogwu found each other, it felt like the universe had finally solved the puzzle it had been working on for centuries. For 6 months, they lived in a beautiful bubble. In that bubble, love was simple. The future was theirs to write, and nothing from the past could reach them. But bubbles are fragile things, especially when you live between two worlds, like Chioma and Odogwu did. This is a story about what happens when love meets family, when the heart of one person collides with the memories of others. This is a story about how two young people learned that the greatest battles in love are not fought against your partner. They are fought against the ghosts of the past. When Odogwu told his family that he wanted to marry Chioma, the response was not what he expected. Nnamdi, his father, had one question. Who is her father? Odogwu said that Chioma's father was a successful businessman, import-export, good money, good reputation. But this was not enough for Nnamdi. Nnamdi had different questions, not about money, but about blood, about lineage, about whether this girl's ancestors could be trusted. Adana, Odogwu's mother, asked what Nnamdi asked, but softer. What is her family line? What kind of blood will our grandchildren carry? Is there anything in our history that might bring shame to our name? Odogwu tried to tell them that Chioma was Igbo, that they were both Igbo. Surely that should be enough. But his father stood and paced and told him a story about how his grandfather knew the family history of his grandmother 7 generations back, about how the old ways of knowing people, of understanding their spirit and their capacity were sacred. When Nnamdi told his son, "No, times have not changed," the weight of those words fell heavy in the room, and Odogwu understood in that moment that love alone was not going to be enough to bridge what separated Chioma from his family. Chioma arrived at Nnamdi's compound uninvited, something unthinkable in traditional Igbo culture. A woman does not go to a man's father's house without formal introduction. She does not show up without respect being shown first. When Nnamdi saw her car pull up, when he realized who was outside, something closed inside him. After that day at the compound, Chioma pulled away from Odogwu, not because she stopped loving him, but because she began to understand something that frightened her, that their love existed in a vacuum. And the moment they tried to bring it into the real world, into their families, into their history, that vacuum would collapse. She loved him, but love was not a bridge. Love was not enough to span what lay between them. And she had begun to wonder, if his family rejected her, if they said no, what would Odogwu do? Would he choose her? Or would he, in the end, choose his family? Odogwu didn't understand. He came from a family where tradition was sacred, but he had believed that love could transform tradition. He had believed that if he loved Chioma enough, his family would have no choice but to accept her. But now he was beginning to doubt his own beliefs. That evening, Chioma confronted her parents. She demanded the truth. She had heard her mother mention a curse in their lineage. She had heard whispers about whether their family was spiritually clean, and she wanted to know what was being hidden from her. Her father showed her a photograph, 3 people, a man, a woman, and a child. That child was Ikechukwu himself. The man in the photo was his father. The woman was his mother. But there was a 4th person missing from the photo, a person who had been cut out so completely that not even a shadow remained. "This is your Uncle Casey," her father said. And with those words, a secret that had been buried for 30 years came into the light, a secret that would change everything. Ikechukwu told his daughter a story about his brother, Kazi. Kazi was brave in ways that Ikechukwu was not. Kazi fell in love with a girl from another family, not just another family, but from the lineage of Namdi himself. The girl's family had once served Ikechukwu's family. There was shame in that history, class shame, Igbo shame. When Kazi and the girl decided they wanted to marry, their families said no, absolutely not. The shame would be eternal. The stain would never wash out. But Kazi refused to accept this. He loved her more than he loved his family's name. So he ran away with her. They married in secret in another village with no witnesses except God. And then their father, Chioma's grandfather, did something that seemed to erase the problem. He disowned Kazi completely. He told the entire family that Kazi was dead to them. In Igbo culture, there is a ritual to erase someone from family memory. Ikechukwu's father performed it. Kazi ceased to exist. But here's the thing, Ikechukwu said to his daughter, Namdi, Odogwu's father, he never forgot. He has spent 30 years remembering what his family spent 30 years trying to forget. If Namdi discovered that Chioma was related to the family that had taken his sister, that had brought shame to his lineage, he would never accept her. He would see her not as a woman, but as a living reminder of the pain his sister caused him. And worse, if anyone discovered that Namdi's wife, Odogwu's own mother, was connected to that story. The secret was so large, so heavy, that it seemed to fill the entire village. That night, Chioma told Odogwu everything. She told him about Uncle Kazi. She told him about the shame. She told him about the curse that had been buried so deep that even her own parents tried to pretend it didn't exist. And when she finished, she asked him a question that changed everything. What if, she asked, I'm the reason your family can never accept us? What if me being alive, me being connected to your family's oldest shame, is something your father can never forgive? And then Odogwu did something Chioma didn't expect. He laughed, not a happy laugh, a broken laugh, the laugh of someone who has been carrying a secret so heavy that when it finally comes out, it breaks something inside him. I know that story, he said. And then he told her, the girl who ran away with Kazi, the girl whose name was whispered in shame in Namdi's house for 30 years, that girl's name was Adana, Odogwu's mother. Odogwu's own mother was the girl from the story. When Kazi died, just 2 years after marrying Adana, a car accident that took him in an instant, she was alone, broken, pregnant with Odogwu, and then Namdi, who had spent his youth hating this woman, who had disowned his own sister for loving her, did something that rewrote the rules of his own heart. He married her. Namdi married Adana, the woman he was supposed to hate, and he raised Odogwu as his own son. He gave the child a name, a family, a future, but he made a choice. He would spend the rest of his life pretending that none of this had happened. He would pretend his sister didn't exist. He would pretend Adana had no past, and Odogwu, growing up in this silence, never knew the full truth until he was 18. In Igbo culture, secrets are meant to be buried. They are meant to stay in the darkness where they belong. But secrets have a way of digging themselves out. And when they do, the entire village feels the earthquake. You bring your daughter to my son, knowing that your family carries the blood of my sister's shame. You did not think to mention that your father was the one who stole my sister from me. Ikechukwu said, Namdi, that was 30 years ago. We were all young. We all made mistakes. Namdi responded, mistakes? Mistakes? Do you understand what that mistake cost me? I lost my sister because she loved your brother, and I spent 30 years pretending that loss didn't exist. And then Adana stood. She stood in front of everyone who had rejected her, everyone who had treated her as a stain on their family, and she spoke truth into the silence. Adana said yes. I ran away with Kazi. Yes, I loved him. And yes, I had to watch him die, knowing that the family he loved had disowned him because of me. But I also know this, Namdi could have let me disappear. Instead, he chose to love me when I had nothing. He chose to give my child a future. And I have spent every day of my life trying to be worthy of that choice. And then something happened that no one expected. Namdi's face crumpled. Not with rage, with grief. All the grief he had been holding for 30 years came pouring out of him. I loved my sister. God knows I loved her, but I was young and I was ashamed. When she ran away, I told myself it was her fault, that she had brought this shame on herself. And when I married and had children, I pretended that shame didn't exist. I buried it so deep that I forgot it was there. Namdi said I have been a coward, a cowardly man who chose pride over love, and I've wasted 30 years because of that choice. Adana responded, but you also chose to love me, and that was brave. In that moment, something changed. The weight that had been sitting on both families for 30 years began to lift. Not all of it. Some wounds take more than a moment to heal, but the door had opened. Amara said, "Sister, we didn't know. We didn't know what it cost you." And then the younger generation spoke. Kaosi, Odogwu's sister, stepped forward and said something that no one had been brave enough to say before. Kaosi said, "We should have been teaching each other that love is never shameful, that when two people choose each other, no tradition is stronger than that." 1 month later, Anri village had a wedding. But this was not a traditional wedding, and it was not a modern wedding. It was something new, something that honored the old ways while making room for the new. Ikichukwu walked Chioma down the aisle, but Namdi was there too, standing beside Adana. And when Namdi's eyes met Chioma's, he smiled. Not a smile of approval, a smile of understanding, a smile of a man who had finally made peace with his past. Chioma and Odogwu wrote their own vows. They didn't follow the traditional words or the modern words. They spoke from their hearts, and this is what they said. Odogwu said, "Chioma, I promise to honor the family you come from, even the parts you are still learning about. I promise to love you not as a woman I need to change, but as a partner I need to grow with. I promise to build a home where love is never ashamed, where history is never buried, and where our children will know that they come from brave people who chose love over pride." Chioma said, "Odogwu, I promise to stand beside you not as a woman trying to fit into your world, but as an equal building a new one. I promise to love your mother like she's my own blood. I promise to respect your father's journey, and I promise to teach our children that the greatest power we have is the power to forgive ourselves, our families, and each other." As the sun set over Nuri village, two families became one, not through tradition alone, not through love alone, but through the courage to let both love and tradition be transformed. In the evening, Amara said to Adana, "If someone had told me a month ago that my daughter's wedding would heal 30 years of family pain, I would have called them a liar. That's because we were too busy believing in curses to recognize miracles." Namdi looked at his daughter, this girl who was born into a world of secrets, and he nodded, just nodded. And in that nod was an entire lifetime of regret and redemption. That night, Chioma and Odogwu returned to the Iroko tree. It was the same tree where they had sat in fear, wondering if love was strong enough. It was the same tree that had witnessed generations of promises, and now it was witnessing a new kind of promise, not a promise of escape from tradition, but a promise to transform it. Odogwu said, "Do you remember when you asked if love was enough?" Chioma responded, "Yes, I do." Odogwu, "What do you think now?" Chioma responded, "I think love was never the question. The question was whether we were brave enough to let it change us, all of us." They kissed under the tree, soft, tender, hopeful. In Nuri village, there is an ancient Iroko tree. For generations, lovers have made promises beneath its branches. And if you listen carefully, really carefully, you can hear not just the promises of the present moment, you can hear the echoes of all the love that came before. Love that was hidden, love that was brave, love that refused to die, even when the world told it to. This is the story of Chioma and Odogwu, but it is also the story of every person who has ever chosen love over fear. It is the story of every family that has chosen healing over pride. And it is a reminder that the greatest love stories are not the ones told in isolation. They are the ones that heal everyone around them, the ones that transform families, the ones that change the future. In the end, love was enough, not because it was perfect, but because everyone was brave enough to let it be real.